Thank you. I'm Aubrey Shepherd. I want to renew what I said at the last meeting, Bobby. That, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for laughing. I think 10 acres should be the maximum that's allowed to be cleared anywhere in the city for any purpose. I'd like to apply that to the high school and the other school being built, because they get pretty far and it's really hard to control and inspect those stormwater controls on vast acreage. And 10's plenty for most projects to have open at once, particularly if it's contractors who are borrowing money to do it and don't have a bond issue behind them to make sure it's finished. So that would be an ordinance amendment I would really appreciate seeing, because it would make it a lot more difficult for some of the previous disasters to occur again as we get growth coming rapidly again. We hope some projects to keep the income coming in, but we hope this ordinance will help make them all better in the future. And I know that's the purpose of it, and make them less harmful. Another thing is, well, I keep saying this, I don't even like the fact that the word drainage has to be used, because the philosophy of really progressive watershed management is keep the water where it falls any way you can. If you've got good soil to soak it in, or you got to build a barrel, or put up any way that you can to utilize it where it falls. And that will be protection in the time of drought like Atlanta had 3 or 4 years ago. We need to learn to do that here. Also, native plants, I think somewhere we've got to have an ordinance that's coming that will ensure that all city projects, all commercial projects, and all homeowners are strongly encouraged to use native plants wherever possible. And that's another thing to do with the water. You don't have to water them, just let them go brown and they come out. It's amazing how they do, even in the summertime. But most of them will be there next year because their roots are deep and they're going to survive. Also, I'd like to mention that another thing I've said before, that we need trained wetland delineators. And I think that the conference this past weekend that some of you attended, and the mayor spoke at and led part of each day, went a long way. I know a lot of staff members were there to teaching people more about managing the watershed. And a similar kind of thing that involves having someone come in specifically. There are lots of companies that do this nationwide, and probably some pretty close, to train multi-department heads or people selected from departments, all departments, in watershed delineation would be important. If there were money right now to hire one employee, I would say hire a experienced, trained wetland delineator and let that person work with all departments, somewhat independent operator, same as I think the tree administrator should be, so that every time there's a tree affected, the tree administrator ought to have input. And the same thing on the watershed. There should be somebody saying, well, this land you should not grade at all. This land over here is where you need to stay with your project. This water line should go this way for this whole development, whatever. I saw one again from last night. Well, no, I didn't get to go to the meeting last night, but I was watching once again the Planning Commission look at the area that was approved for development several years ago out off Dead Horse Mountain Road. It's the Hall Farm. And they're still arguing about what's wetland out there. And they haven't even had it delineated. They've got plans drawn to build down there where I've walked. And part of it used to be actual, a pond. And we know it's wetland, but if they hire somebody to look at it, they're going to find a certain amount will qualify as jurisdictional for the Corps of Engineers. But the Corps of Engineers will tell you the city does not have to wait to see what the Corps says. You have a person qualified to do it, and you set the limits so that you really do protect the watershed if you've got city rules to control it, not depend on what the Corps says, which is traditionally it's been done by men who work for the developers, and then they send a report to the Corps. And some of them are retired from the Corps or have worked there a few years, and they know how to write the report. That's the main thing they know that you and I might not know. Because I tell them all the way through is wetland and how much it's necessary to save the adjacent land to protect that wetland. But this guy's going to say, well, this much here is jurisdictional, just this little real wet place, it's a stream flow area through this property. Because he's paid by the developer. He isn't crooked, he's just doing his job. Last thing is it would be possible to have every city employee gain a little sophistication with these areas. A lot of them know a lot about it, but if they did, then when they're working on a project or supervising in particular, they would be able to recognize the problem. Or if they're out inspecting for something else, they would notice a watershed violation on a project, large or small. But I'll stop, but please consider setting a 10-acre limit for the clearing of ground in our city. And I think you will be glad someday when another one fails, for sure. Any question for me, brother? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aubrey. Who else?